everybody, Miss Nunn here with another art lesson safely at home. I hope you are all doing really well, and I have to say I'm so happy that you're sharing your artwork with me. Some of your parents have sent me messages and images of your artwork, and I just want to say keep up the good work, and I love seeing your work, so please keep sharing it. Okay, let's get started. Did you know that when I was your age, when I was in elementary school, I didn't have art class? It's true, I didn't. So I had to rely on the people around me and on other resources to learn about art. One of those people in my life was my dad. And my dad and I spent so much time drawing together. It was a great way for us to practice our artwork, and it was also a great way for us to spend time together. Do you have a person in your life who really loves art? Awesome if you do. I want to encourage you to invite that person to do this project with you this week and maybe spend some time together making art. Okay, the other way that I learned about art when I was younger is by looking at books. And this was a book that I received as a young person. It's called Sketching, Planning, and Drawing by Valerie Whiffen. And another one of those people in my life who loves art and cared about my art education actually bought me this book. So I also want to encourage you to pull out your art books if you have any at home. Okay, our lesson this week is about drawing plants and trees. We're going to draw plants and trees in a lot of different ways, but that's why this book was so important. When I was younger, the only way that I knew how to draw plants and trees was in that sort of cartoon-like billowy cloud type tree that I had seen everybody else draw. When I looked at this book as a young person, I noticed that these plants look a little bit more realistic. So I have to think, what were these artists doing differently than I was doing when I was drawing my sort of poofy cloud trees? One of those things, I believe, is observation. You might have heard the word observation in Miss McCollum's science lab. So think for just a moment, what does it mean to observe? Right, to observe means to look closely. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look really closely at the plants and the trees that we're going to draw. In order to look closely, I need to be able to see a tree. So the way that I observe trees for your lesson resource is I actually took my dog on a walk. And as we walked, I took photographs of trees that I thought looked really interesting. Another way that you could observe a tree is you could do what I'm doing right now, which is sitting on my porch and looking across the street at one of my favorite trees, which I call the jungle tree. And that's the tree that I'm going to draw today. If it's raining on the day that you decide to do this project, then you might have to stay indoors. So you could look out a window at trees that are in your yard, or you could, with the help of a parent, look on the internet, just Google some images of trees to draw from. Lastly, I've provided some of those pictures I took on my walk with my dog in the lesson resource if you want to draw one of those trees. Okay, so let's get started. The first tree that I want to draw today is a tree that looks exactly like the tree that I see. Who can remember what style that is? When an artist draws exactly what they see in the way that looks just like the object. Exactly. Realism. Realism is the style where you draw something that looks realistic, exactly the way that it is. So the first tree I'm going to draw is in the style of realism. I'm going to pause you for a second and set up my drawing table. Okay, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Oh yes, there's my hand. Great. I decided to just get a bunch of different drawing materials out. I have pencils, I got out some markers, I have my crayons out here. So it doesn't really matter what you select to draw with today, but for realism, which is our first style, I'm certainly going to draw with a material that allows me to draw something realistic. So I'm going to start with a pencil so that I can erase if I need to, and here we go. I'm observing the tree that's across the street. It's a really large, crazy tree that has really giant leaves and some hanging seed pods. And I like to call this tree the jungle tree because it just reminds me of the jungle. So the very first thing I'm going to do is draw the shape of the tree. And the shape of the tree, I'm going to start up here at the top of the paper. It's sort of kind of round at the top, comes down, and it kind of gets skinnier at the bottom where the trunk is. And there happens to be a truck parked at the bottom, so I'm just going to stop there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the edge of the tree so that it looks a little bit more natural. This line that I just drew is very straight, but look at the edges of your tree. Are the edges of the tree straight, or are they curvy and bumpy? I bet the edges of your tree are very curvy and bumpy, unless you're looking at a hedge, which is a bush that people cut sometimes to be straight edges. So I'm going to change the contour of my line to be a little bit more organic, is a word that we like to use. And when I do this, I like to let myself be kind of free. It doesn't have to be exact, it just needs to be kind of like the tree that I'm looking at. And I'm looking at the tree, and then I'm drawing. I'm looking at the tree, and then I'm drawing. And I just repeat that over and over. I'm getting closer to the bottom of the tree, and I'm going to stop there. So then I go up to the top, and there's these like crazy things sticking out of the top. And I keep going. This is sort of looking like a light bulb right now. Okay. And branches are hanging out over here. Great. So now I can go back and I can erase that initial sketch that I made where I got the shape of my tree correct. Okay, great. Now I can start working in my details of my tree, kind of in the middle of the tree. So I'm going to start drawing some kind of individual leaves that I see. Remember, this doesn't have to be exact, because nobody is going to look at the tree that you draw and notice if you missed a leaf or something like that. And so I'm going to continue working in this way until I feel good about my tree. This tree has little bunches of leaves kind of everywhere, so I'm going to fill this whole area in with those little bunches of leaves. Another thing that I can do for this realistic tree is there's some like branches that are kind of hanging out of my tree, and I can kind of draw those the way that I see it, and then I can go in and add those individual leaves that I see on this tree. Okay. My best advice for drawing plants is don't try to be too exact. Don't try to be too precise. Even if you're doing realism, your tree is probably going to look realistic if you are keeping your drawing kind of loose and organic. Curvy, bumpy kind of lines. Okay? Okay, so now that I've kind of started this tree, I would continue to draw this tree, and then I'm going to select colors for this tree that match the tree. And this tree happens to be like different kinds of greens, so I probably would select my green crayons or my green color pencils to color in this tree. There's also some ivy on this tree, so I probably would color with some blue-green, which I can't seem to find here to show you. But I definitely would just mix some colors on the tree. Even when I color my tree, it doesn't have to be exactly right. But one thing that we have talked about is we have talked about color blending, and that's when I take more than one color and I mix those colors to create my own color. just a little bit more attractive as a way of coloring. Looks better. There we go. And I could start adding color to my tree. Okay, so after you draw a realistic tree, if you want to challenge yourself, then I challenge you to draw the same tree, but this time in the style that isn't exactly realistic, but where we change elements of art. We could change the line, we could change the shape, we could change the color. I want you to think just a moment, what is the style where we can change the elements of art? Right, that's abstraction. So if you want to challenge yourself, I challenge you to abstract the tree that you're drawing. So the first thing that I'm going to change for this tree is I'm going to change the color. I'm going to select orange for this tree. The next thing that I know I'm going to change for this tree is the line. So what I'm going to do, instead of drawing the tree exactly the way that I see it, like I did last time, which was a pretty slow, methodical process, this time I'm going to draw the tree quickly. 4th grade, you might recognize this as gesture drawing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to get the shape of the tree just by drawing really quickly. So this is the basic shape of the tree. Okay. So now I'm going to go in with another color, maybe a red, and I'm going to add some more to my drawing. There are branches that are sticking up like this, branches that are like this, and I'm just adding some branches to my tree. I'm still drawing kind of gesturally, which is quickly, but I'm not being as exact. I'm abstracting the tree, changing it a little bit so that it's a little bit easier and just a different kind of drawing. Okay, so now I could go in with a different material, like a marker, and I can add leaves or things like that to my tree. I can make it have a little bit more tree characteristics. And down here's a bunch of ivy on the base of the tree. Okay. Alright, now I'm not going to do this forever because you get the idea. I can make my tree abstract so that it's not exactly realistic. Alright. If you can remember other styles like surrealism or cubism or pop art, a lot of different styles that we studied, then I encourage you to draw the same tree in those styles as well. Alright, now to make this project a lot easier, if you're really struggling to do this project, then I encourage you to really loosen up and really be abstract. So I don't have to draw, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on myself to draw a tree that's exactly the way that I see it. I could really abstract this tree and just kind of draw the basic shape of the tree. Like this. It almost looks like a singing bird. That's okay. And then I could simply color this the color of the tree. I don't have to be super realistic with this. The idea is to just get outside and practice drawing things in nature. And if the way that you draw things in nature is really simple, then we should celebrate that. That's a really great way to draw trees and bushes and plants. Simple counts. It's really simple. Okay. Okay. I hope that you try and draw every tree that's in your yard. I hope that you try to draw some trees that maybe are in your neighborhood, that you've taken a walk and you've located on your walk. Maybe you go to the greenway and you find some really interesting trees there, which I know that there's a magnolia tree that I really love when I'm on my jog on the greenway. So that would be a really good tree for me to draw. Once you've drawn your trees or your plants, my reflection challenge for this week is to ask yourself, how is this skill a good skill to practice? Why is drawing plants and trees something that you might use as you get older? Why is it important? How would you use this skill as a scientist? How would you use this skill as an architect or a fashion designer? Think about why it's important to know how to draw plants and trees, and then I'll see you again next week. Happy drawing, everybody!